Well, there are a lot of questions surrounding the coronavirus, how fast it spreads, and frankly, how deadly it is. The more that medical professionals are able to study this virus, the more clear that those answers are becoming. For more, we're joined by Dr. Larry Burchett, an ER doctor and host of the Life Can Change in a Moment podcast. Dr. Burchett, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, Alex. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. So how much more of a threat is the coronavirus compared to the flu? How much more likely are you to die from coronavirus compared with seasonal flu?
Initially, we kind of had a lot of this fear of the unknown. Is the coronavirus, is the death rate 9% like SARS or something huge like 36%? The first numbers that came out were about 2%, which is a really high death rate. The flu is less than 0.1%. But as we've studied this, we've come to see that initially those numbers were based on the sick people, and that in fact 80% of people will have mild or not very severe symptoms at all, and the death rate is likely much lower. Some have said 1%, some have even said comparable to the flu, like 0.1%. So it does not appear to be as deadly as was first worried about with this outbreak.
So ultimately it could turn out to be sort of similar in terms of the number of people who die when you compare it to the flu.
Yeah, in terms of it appears to be about as contagious. So if one person has corona, they're able to spread it to 2 to 3 people, 2.3 people, which is comparable with some cases of influenza. You're seeing this chart in front of you. The one with all the red dots in the bottom, that's measles. One case of measles can spread to 16 or 18 people. It's incredibly contagious, but it's not very lethal. If you were to spread that out over the entire U.S. population, some people would die because it's so contagious, which is why vaccination is so important for measles. The one in the middle, and on the kind of middle line left, that's corona, which again is comparable to influenza. So what we're learning, there was a great article in the New England Journal of Medicine that discussed the first 425 cases where we've studied people that actually had it. And it appears to me that we can breathe a sigh of relief. It isn't as bad as we initially worried. So the people that ended up dying tended to be older, 70s, 80s. Some of these cases in Washington of people that died that was announced today, they also were in the 80s, and they're sick. They have poor health conditions. The other thing they learned from this initial study of the 425, there were no children under 15 infected. Really interesting. This virus is not a pediatric illness. It appears that children either have a robust immune response, they're able to clear it, they do not get gravely ill, as opposed to older folks who have poor health. Again, that mirrors influenza. I think we've had 125 kids die of the flu. I think more children are going to die from influenza than corona. Again, another point that kind of reassures me, hey, maybe this isn't the viral apocalypse that we're getting all worked up and worried about.
Once we learn more information. So, Dr. Burchett, a lot of folks are going to be listening to this, and they're hearing people like you and a lot of others saying, look, for most people, you don't have to be that concerned. But let's say someone out there starts to feel sick. How should someone know if those symptoms that they have are the common cold, the seasonal flu, or the coronavirus?
It's going to be very different for really the average person. It's going to be different for us in medicine to know the difference between any of that. I think the principles that you use to guide is, do you have, a cough, a fever, a flu-like thing, and do you feel okay staying at home, staying out of the public, kind of not transmitting it, doing all the things that we really tell people to do for influenza, and a lot of times they don't listen. I have a feeling people are going to listen when public health says, look, if you get sick, stay at home. Don't go to school, don't go to work, don't go to the gym. It's going to be hard to tell the difference between them. I mean, I can sit here in the ER and run tests and tell you the difference between influenza A and B. And I can see that flu A has high fevers, maybe flu B is a little more, nausea, vomiting associated with it. But until I run those tests, I can't tell it apart. It's going to be hard to tell it apart from the common cold or the flu.
All right, and now we are doing a whole lot more testing. That is certainly ramping up. We have to leave it there. Dr. Larry Burchett, always appreciate your time. Thanks for putting things in perspective. We appreciate it.
Good to see you, Alex.
Good to see you, too.